Of Mike from around the world. Here is Mike from around the world. Mike, are you there?
Pastor Paul, how you doing this evening?
Doing blessed and highly favored. I got my beautiful wife Heidi with me tonight.
Oh, here we go. Double trouble.
We're double trouble.
The anointing. How about that?
Well, okay, that's better. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you clarifying that. So, Mike, it's been a week now since the incoming debris field and the update you gave us last week. Can you tell us a little bit what's going on with that right now?
Oh, most certainly. In fact, I want to change positions. I want to preface this, Pastor Paul, by saying, I want to tell everybody, all the information that's gathered, observed, right? People have to be careful to not to think in a prophetic nature too much, because this is science and observation. But we've had some things that have transpired or happened or manifest that are not so good. And yesterday, my jaw dropped. It literally dropped. I'm gonna start this way. I know that many people have noticed some of the stalled systems in the earth, worldwide in the earth. I'm sure that some people have actually observed some of these low pressure systems that will not move. Most of them have moved not more than about 7 miles to this very point. To this time, they've been like that for about last 5 days, 5 to 7 days. Stalled systems. Some of the modeling data alarms went off a couple days ago, because this scenario that we're watching is, I thought I would, well, I'll put it this way. I've never in my life have I been able to observe these patterns. And I don't think anybody has ever observed these patterns. And it may be insignificant because you're not going to hear this in any other form unless they have access to that modeling data or they work with atmospheric models. But these stalled weather systems match a world that is... if I were to overlay this to another model, we would have to have a lot of active volcanoes. The surface of the Earth would have to be changed in order for the atmosphere to match what we're seeing right now. So, considering that, we ran some other simulations, and the only other perturber that could cause the atmosphere to stall, these low pressure systems to stall, is an external force. And so we began to check. And what we did was we did a bit of data mining. Of course, everybody should know that the European Space Agency, they are spearheading the charge in all information. So most of the information out there in these public forums and through observations, NASA's website, JPL, all these different, SOHO and all these different things, they are highly filtered these days. You're not going to see what you need to see. Something about 2 days ago zipped past the Earth.
What?
Something obstructed 2 of the tactical satellites I know of, which prompted an emergency launch, which will take place in a week or so, because they have to replace some of that technology. So it's one of the major things that's happening right now is, and I'm not sure because I'm running all over the place, I'm not sure how they're covering this, but you will likely hear about some failing communications satellites, some failing technology here and there, because they're trying to cover for something that happened in space due to something zipping by the Earth. Right now, and I'm not sure that this can be tracked, but they're going to have to say something now, because I'm going to say something. Something has happened on the backside of the moon. Something happened because some of the objects that were zipping by got captured a bit in Earth's gravity, and they obstructed portions of the moon, kind of like scraped the moon. So they're going to have to say something about that, because it's on the backside, yes, but the good part about that is that people are going to be able to observe the debris moving around the moon. It's not going to be a UFO. It's going to be like a cloud-type vapor issue going around the moon from some of the impacts that are taking place. And to my knowledge, they're still taking place.
So there's actual impacts hitting the moon, or
there are things hitting the backside of the moon upon the I tell you, the picture is so chaotic, but it gives and I know that our May 12th date was simply an observation date to kind of gauge what we're about to face. What's happening right now is unexpected, very unexpected. So I'm trying to, if because people know about this information now, because I'm just saying it. When the cover stories come out, right? When the other explanations come out, everybody can have a pretty clear picture as to what is actually taking place here. Because they're going to have to come up with something to cover things that have been happening in the atmosphere. Now, these stalled atmospheric fronts that we have right now, the ones that are causing all the floods in some of you guys in Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, that circle. I'm sure that you guys have been dealing with rain for a long time. Well, we have some other stalled fronts that are coming. Here's the bad part. The vortices are being maintained by something in the crust of the earth, not the atmosphere. The atmosphere is losing its ability to govern weather patterns. Now, the only time this happens is right before the change in a jet stream. Which is why the modeling alarms went off. Because if you have too many stalled lows, the jet stream will change its force. Inertia will change the flow of the jet stream. And so, that's being watched very closely.
Now, are you saying when it changes, Mike, are you saying it will reverse
yeah, that's reverse. That means instead of the winds coming, from California going to the East Coast, it's going to reverse. It'll come from the East Coast going to California, which would not be good for any crops or anything like that, because some of the temperate forest regions on the East Coast would then turn to arid regions, and some of the arid regions on the West Coast would turn to temperate forest regions. So that would be a reversal. That will be damaging.
Mike, John Moore, who was on during our MegaQuake 2020 conference, he talked about that also in his presentation, that when the poles start shifting to a certain degree, we'll start seeing jet streams possibly reversing and going from east to west, and that totally affects the weather patterns totally. And because you still got some jet stream coming up, or whatever it is, coming up out of the south, so you have a different collision, if you will, between the winds. It just totally messes up the whole weather pattern. And are you saying that some of the things we saw here in the last week is indicating we're about to see a reversal?
Especially what's being observed now in the atmosphere is a prelude to that specific event. And again, yesterday, I'm telling you, my jaw dropped with the patterns. When I saw the patterns and they didn't move, and then we did a type of historical check, there is nothing in history that matches close to this, because this is being caused by ground temperatures. Now, with the rain, here's what happens. When the rain falls and some of these stall fronts and the flooding and all that, it's going to cool down the crust of the earth, right, in various places. But when that rain is gone again, we're going to have stalled fronts again and again and again and again. So we're going through a cycle of this. If too many low pressure systems begin to take over, and high pressure systems, there were several trying to form, the low pressure systems were of such power that high pressure systems could not form. And everybody knows high pressure systems, right? They are powerful. They can just totally deplete all the energy of a low pressure system. That was not so in the last several days. It's not been so. So these stalled fronts are clear indications of something on the crust of the earth and out there that have, it's like a perfect storm that has happened. The conditions on the surface of the earth with conditions in space have just, they've given birth to some of these stalled systems that we see. I'm sure that meteorologists are coming up with extra names for some of the, that's just like that word super. You'll hear that word super put in front of a great many different storms that we've had. Thunderstorms, super hurricanes, super typhoons, super this, that, and the other. You're going to hear that word because some of the wind speeds are going to be, I'd say, about a couple degrees higher than what they normally are. which is very damaging. They're not covering this. I know that for a fact right now. They're certainly not covering some of these stalled fronts because they're trying to gather data to better explain it to the populace. And one thing about the populace, they cannot, the populace or the mainstream media, they're under gag orders and restraints. And remember, they do what they do for money. If they weren't getting paid, right, they wouldn't report the news. They can only put out what they are able to put out. Now, some of these guys, they would just love to spill the beans, but of course they can't because they would never have a job after that. And they've worked up a pretty big lifestyle, so they need that job to support their lifestyle now. So they're somewhat gagged as to what they can say. On occasion, they try to slip things out, but that takes the education of the populace to really understand what they're saying. But I believe that a few of them are trying to give ample indication that something is very different than what most people are interpreting or that they see. In other words, some of the information we talk about here will more and more, you're going to see greater confirmation from some of these folks in mainstream media as to some of the topics we're talking about here, because they really want people to understand the truth, but they also can't, they just simply can't come out and say something because they would never have a job. They would never have a
now,
voice.
You've talked in the past, you've talked in the past, Mike, that the underground cities, the underground bunkers, the systems, the laboratories, the things underground, were not just being utilized now because of COVID-19, but actually are beginning to be used because of the incoming debris field. And I've heard you say that by the fall, maybe by September even, can't judge exactly the dates because this thing is hard to read, but the debris field is certainly coming, and the effects on the earth are going to be way more extreme. I mean, extreme weather, extreme straight line winds, large hail. We had hail this week, Mike, in Mexico, the size of melons that weighed over 4 pounds. I have never seen a hail ball, Heidi, in all my life that was big enough that it was the size of a melon that weighed over 4 pounds. But we're getting closer to the time when the Bible speaks of the hail being the size of talents, which is somewhere between 50 and 75 pounds. To create large hail, as you've said already, it requires extreme wind speeds. And so we're going to be seeing more of the word super of a lot of things. Is that right?
You better believe it. And again, even with even hail, it takes to support something an ice ball 50 pounds, that takes 207 mile an hour winds going up, straight up. That takes an updraft of 207 miles an hour to support an ice ball 50 pounds, because it gives a specific radius based upon the density of the water. So 207 mile an hour winds, consistent, continuous, that's what it takes, not a gust. But we're talking about consistent wind speeds. That means, and that's an updraft, that means lateral winds would have to be a fraction higher than 207 miles an hour, which push any type of straight line winds at about 222 miles an hour to have an updraft of 207. So you're looking at, and you know what, it almost seemed laughable in 2015 when we discussed, or 2016, I believe it was, when we discussed some of these straight line winds that would reach speeds of up to 225 miles an hour, 235 miles an hour. It seemed laughable. This year already they have seen wind speeds 197 miles an hour, straight line winds with no storms, zero storms, straight line winds that were sustained winds, right? Sustained winds. I believe that lasted for about 6 to 7 hours. Sustained winds. And so we're going to see more and more of this type of manifestation in the earth, especially due to some of the atmospheric issues that we're experiencing. And again, it's almost like with the atmosphere, it's almost like a finger came through our atmosphere, touching just the tip of the atmosphere, causing a distortion of the flow in our atmosphere. And if you look at fluid dynamics, which is what some of these computer modeling data is based upon, fluid dynamics, it would take an object of pretty big mass to actually skim our atmosphere to cause what's happening in our atmosphere right now. So something has certainly, something without observation detection has certainly, it did something to our atmosphere. Everything is pointing back to that. It disrupted everything when it passed through. We know the exact moment when it passed through, but it did something to the atmosphere, and it was no one saw a thing, no one told a thing, right? But the after effects we're now experiencing. NASA, JPL, ESU, all those guys that are monitoring our magnetosphere, they've already noticed changes, and they did they had to project backwards some of the modeling data to see, well, where did this come about? What happened here? And so I guarantee they're scrambling to come up with everything to explain what took place. Of course, everybody here should be educated in what's really happening. That's simply from my small observation and true data that we have. Of course, the bigger picture, nobody knows the bigger picture, not yet, but I'm sure that this year is going to yield quite a bit for us to see.
Mike, there's a breaking news article where you're talking about the Earth's magnetic field weakening, and it just came out a little over 4 hours ago. I want to have you read a little bit here just from it. This was the Fox News Earth's magnetic field weakening and impacting. I'm sorry. Just read that, Heidi. Just a little bit there because I just want to hear it.
Well, it was just about the Earth's magnetic field is gradually weakening in an area that stretches. This is what you were talking about, Mike, from Africa to South America, and they're calling it the South Atlantic anomaly. Is that what you were talking about? Where they're saying that it's heating up underneath the 3,000 kilometers under our feet, swirling liquid iron that compromises the planet's outer core, which is about 3,000 kilometers under our feet.
Yeah, that's one of the issues I did discuss a couple of weeks ago. It sure is. That's one of those issues, and it's gaining momentum and spreading, and it's spreading around.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says that it's affecting the impacting satellites and spacecrafts. Is that part of the what you say when you first came on? It's affecting.
Yeah, things are being. Now, I wouldn't say all of them are being affected by that. Here's why. Because that anomaly, right, is massive. That's a massive anomaly that has existed for a long time. All your air traffic control individuals know about that no-go area, that no-fly zone, because of that you can't fly certain things over that area because of the skewed magnetic properties of that, and lots of downed missiles, aircraft, you name it, has happened over that area. In fact, it has a strange magnetic pull and attractance from anything from little tiny meteorites in space to larger missiles, and so they are highly aware of that disruption in the Earth, and it is beginning to expand. But you're looking at that, but there's something in space still that is causing an issue. That, in conjunction with the crust of the Earth itself, is causing an issue with our atmosphere. I wouldn't doubt that South Atlantic anomaly, or that we have two of them. I wouldn't doubt that they play their role. They've always played a role. But we're looking at some seriously massive forces. And I'll say it again yesterday, because yesterday my jaw just dropped. I didn't know what I was looking at. You ever see something that just shocked you? You didn't think you'd see it. There it is, right? So it may not be, this is one of those things that you have to understand computer modeling, have seen it or been working with it to really have your jaw drop, because it's a simulation that no one ever thought they would see. And I guarantee it's making people nervous.
Now, why does that make you nervous, Mike? Does it mean that Planet X, this binary system, and there's another article just came out today that says that there is a moon, that they've located a moon that is following a large mass. They can't see the mass, which I assume is Planet X or NIBIRU, but they can see this moon on the edge of our solar system, and your jaw dropped because you've seen something manifest that tells you something bigger, isn't it? There's something more about to happen, and can you allude to that a little bit?
Well, yeah, it does, and one of the more immediate effects is what we're going to experience with our weather. and with the crust of the Earth. And I emphasize, changes in the crust of the Earth are going to be immense. They're going to be immense. I understand that we have issues in space, yes. But you have to understand some of the forces out there in space. We have objects in space that are outside the heliosphere that affect our sun, and that's a long way away. When you're past Pluto, outside the heliosphere, and you affect the sun, that is a massive force. So depending on some of the concentrations of these forces, we're going to be affected in ways that we have never been affected by ever before. There's no record, no immediate record that anybody has ever gone through this, because some of these episodes are cyclical, which means they come around every 2,000 years, every 14,000 years, 26,000 years, 36,000 years, so on and so forth. But there are other events that are quite large. They have been suspected as happening, and we're in one of those seasons where there's something coming around, not only things that are documented in text, but you're looking at something that was also found in archaeology, something that was found through, digging through 7 miles of earth. You're looking at something from out there in space that is immense, and forces we've just not experienced before. So all this happening at the same time is just, that's just that's high strangeness. In fact, that is high strangeness. Some of the more immediate effects are what it's going to do to the atmosphere here on Earth. And because of what's happening right now, these changes seem to be initiating right now as we speak. Some of the changes in the atmosphere, it seems they have already begun. Keep in mind, with other bodies in space and our planets and so on and so forth, they have very high winds in the atmosphere. And the only thing stopping some of those high winds in the atmosphere with us is the density of the atmosphere and the placement of some of the particles in the atmosphere, by the way, which is changing by all the energy that's being introduced into the Earth. And because our sun is at solar minimum, the absorption of those waves is going to be 10 times more than what it was before. Without the sun shooting out flares and CMEs and all these things, it will not push back some of the galactic cosmic rays that are coming into the planet. So the planet's going to begin to exponentially absorb this radiation. And so we're going to see massive changes in the magnetosphere. We could actually see a total collapse. We could see a sputtering of our magnetosphere as you have a change in polarity. And if that, when that takes place, that's very bad, because that can burn people. What? That can cause people to have aneurysms. That's just like, especially with American people, I don't know about other countries, but I often track the nutrition of people in America. And Americans are highly nutritional deficient. In fact, the natural cause of death in America, right, is an aneurysm, in truth. And an aneurysm is basically caused from a copper deficiency. So the elasticity of your veins, because it's lined with copper, your veins are like these strong metal tubes, right? And copper is a big part of that. But because people don't have a lot of minerals in their system, they have aneurysms, they have ruptures and everything else, and they call that a natural, that's natural causes. That's ridiculous. So Americans are highly nutritional deficient. They also don't, because they need manganese and magnesium and all these different things to maintain good thinking behaviors. They don't have that either. So that doesn't fare well with changes in the magnetosphere. That doesn't fare well with changes in the Earth. You're looking at a behavior of us, of human beings, that'll be quite violent, quite disruptive in everything. True mental changes in the brain are taking effect, and it's going to be because of these external forces that wreak havoc on the brain, sending a person into a type of mental chaos.
Mike, what about CERN? I mean, are they still running CERN? Or are they still testing?
They're desperately. CERN is desperate right now to CERN is brand new methods in the protection of the magnetosphere. They have perfected the building of these magnets so they can protect various areas of the Earth, and they are desperate to finish some of their experiments. One of the biggest experiments that CERN had that perfected some of the technologies, again, are the magnets. I know that everybody's looking at the particle physics, but one of the things they perfected was magnetism. When they turn these magnets on, they can actually put a protective bubble over the area of where they are, and those are going to be essential with a collapsed magnetosphere.
Okay, we had a collapse in here as well. My chair knocked down my presentation and the American flag. Still having problems. Mike, is that incoming debris field starting to shake things up at the studio? Am I safe in the bunker?
Just not seeing that on video. It looks like you caused your own debris field.
I felt a wave of energy. Sorry about that, Mike, but it's a wave of energy hit here. I guess we're not safe in our bunkers, I take it.
Yeah. Basketball, you might want to adjust that chair so it doesn't lean back so much. We're gonna do some modifications in here. Okay, so all right, hey Mike, I tell you what, let's switch subjects for a minute. People have been calling us and writing us and everything about the man or whoever, somebody in the casket at the White House. You know, you brought this up 2 weeks ago, saying, "Look, folks, somebody's going to end up in a casket," and then you had a dream in which you saw a face. People have been wondering what's going on. The COVID-19 thing is still, of course, going. We're at 93, maybe 94,000. Certainly by next Thursday night, if you're with us, we're probably going to be over 100,000 people. It's a sad situation, which means before the end of May, we're going to hit 100,000 lost lives. But let's go back to the casket, I guess, and I hate it's a morbid discussion, but can you help us understand, is there anything you can give us more clue or information about this? Well, again, it was a dream, and I've never seen anybody's face in a casket like that. Now, yes, we are in the middle of a pandemic, but you have a lot of people being their own doctors. Right? Now, actually, this happened after I had that dream and saw who I saw. I've noticed some behavioral changes in the individuals and some of the bold movements they're making. I can tell you right now, I certainly hope it does not come to pass. But again, I've never seen anybody lay in a casket that clear. I mean, it was like I could see everything, see their face, their expressions, and it was a pretty not so good time. But that individual that was in the casket is a very important individual to America. And when I saw that, it was about, actually a few days ago, a topic arose a few days ago of people making changes to their own, they're making changes with their own health choices, which, that kind of disturbed me a little bit too. It kind of went along with that. Then, of course, you had your dream that you discussed at that same time with Mike Pence.
Right.
How distressed he looked. Well, I had no idea you had that dream, and when you told me about that dream, it kind of shook me up a little bit, because I, for one, do not want that to happen. I just don't, because that's you're looking, if somebody in leadership goes, that's a major disruption. You already have disgruntled individuals who are limited, or they're doing limited things because they still have a hope for resolve through these iconic individuals in leadership. If something happens to them, you're looking at folks who cannot be consoled, and they will do things that they shouldn't ordinarily do. And then you have other folks who will scoff, and so that brings up a lot of.
Well, let me throw something out just real quick. There's been a lot of pressure on this administration. There's been the Russia collusion, confusion hoax. There's been the tapping of the president's campaign office's phones through the Carter Page thing, through the Steele dossier, through the fake Russian dossier, and Christopher Steele and everybody involved. We had the meeting on the tarmac with Loretta Lynch. We had the James Comey fiasco, the Mueller report, the whole thing. And we've come through all of this stuff, and it's created such a turmoil and such a division, I think, in the swamp and the Congress. I guess now it's COVID-19. Our whole nation is going through a major economic effect on us. I mean, are we just to a point now that people they'll do anything? I mean, are we to this point now? They'll do anything to win an election or take an election or steal an election?
I think they're still right now. They're trying to play by the rules, right? I really do believe that. But I also believe that there are other elements at play, which is causing a bit of bitterness to be a little bit on both sides, because the views, between Democrats and Republicans, although they are different, they still were looking at the American people. But now, it seems like some of them are not looking at the American people, which was a common bond with the two parties. And it's more like they're only interested in furthering their own personal objectives. And so, that is really a breakdown in democracy. That's a fallout democracy. Because it seems that the government, aside from a few individuals, have really turned in on themselves, and they're spending most of their time trying to disprove the government. When the government starts trying to disprove the government, and their attention and their focus and their energies and everything is focused internally, then you have strife. You have a large amount of strife and debate and envy and all these different things, which means they are effectively neutralized in quite a few things they can do. And you have several individuals who are trying to break that stigma and that neutralization issue that they have right now, so that they can get on with American business. But even it's being halted at every single turn by something, if not something with the American people. We have this disease that came out of nowhere, and it just seems like everything is trying to hold America's leadership from doing anything. It's really effectively neutralizing everything that has ever been done. It's set everything back to zero. And I'm not just kidding, because our economy, a lot of people are looking at the economy. I'll say two things. A lot of people are finding a niche in this economy, and their Christians are finding a niche. There are stories about Christians who have become millionaires overnight, millionaires in a couple of days, because they're doing things where people actually benefit from it. Versus those people who manage information, they don't do anything for the people, but they make money off of people who owe money. So that's changing. But the economic situation, this what's happening right now, is going to take a while to get back to normal, because we still have to deal with this COVID-19. We still have to deal with people's paranoia of COVID-19, even when it's almost eradicated, which I don't see happening until at least it's going to be a year and a half before it's eradicated,
right.
If that short a time. So
right.
We have a change in how things work. We have a change in employment. A lot of people have to do things from home. We have a change in manufacturing industry and all these things because of the mandates of people being distant from one another, which is going to set back the economy even further. Our food markets are clearly affected. We talked about that. I guess that people are seeing that now. When you go and buy a pack of hamburger, that's $28, I heard. And so, it's only a matter of time before it gets everywhere, because now they have limited meat that they can give Americans, because they had to slaughter a bunch of product, and they had to make some adjustments. So this whole thing is we're in brand new territory, right?
We really are, Mike.
You can tell that because with business, they're trying to resort back to familiar things like drive-in movies, and that's what they're advertising: drive-in movies and the roller skate diners and things of that nature. Well, that's not solving the problem. They're doing that to come out with a good story to comfort everybody. But while they're comforting everybody, they still have no solution as to how we're going to go forward with jobs, with how we live, and everything else. So, and I'm one of those guys. Don't give me the comfort, give me the truth, right?
Yeah.
So I can know what I'm dealing with,
folks. We got
believes in the media so much, Pastor Paul, that they're buying everything that the media is saying, and it's a really sad situation. But you're seeing people act like zombies towards the media. Whatever the media says, these guys do, they believe, they act, which is doing nothing but causing a control mechanism to rise in all of these countries. There is a control mechanism rising that is going to present something very different than anybody is used to. And the reason why it's rising is because most governments are tied up within themselves and the people have no direction. Something is certainly rising right now as we speak, and it's only a matter of time before it takes its position, and nobody can do anything about it. So,
folks, Mike from around the world's with us. Got almost 5,000 people with us right now live on our main YouTube channel. Let me say something. He said people are starting to act like zombies. Well, guess what? We have a conference coming up in July where Mike is one of the speakers, as well as L.A. Marzulli, Russ Dizdar, Steve Quayle, and a whole lot of others, Rex Bear. It's not zombies, but it's aliens, AI, and the Antichrist, how they're coming together. Even Ronald Reagan told us, Mike, when he stood in front of the United Nations, he said, maybe the only thing that will unite the world is an alien force. Sign up for this conference. We're going to tell you the real truth. Hang on a second. Aliens, AI technology, and the Antichrist. These three categories need to be explained. We're having a powerful webinar at my website, July 17th and 18th. Get your ticket now. It's time to answer some of the unexplained questions that have boggled the minds and the deception. Hollywood has confused so many, but we will answer them all. Get prepared in these last days. This chair is designed to catch me, guys, no matter what happens. But anyway, that conference is going to be amazing, guys. Get your tickets now. Get your tickets now for that. That is going to be a powerful webinar. Mike, you're going to be talking about aliens, AI, and the Antichrist, and how this really is an evolution of strong delusion. You got anything you want to add to just to give us an idea of what you might be discussing?
Well, many of the components of what's in this strong delusion is already at work. I think that people have become so accustomed to the lifestyle they live, they can no longer see what's against them. They can't see what they're doing. They can't see what they are supporting. For example, many people cannot see some of the ceremonies that they are participants in. They think it's harmless, and part of that comes from education, like morality and everything else, but make no mistake, they are participating in ceremonies. But nobody would voluntarily be a part of some sort of a witch ceremony or demonic, ceremony, but in truth, they are, and they do lend their hearts to these ceremonies without them knowing. This is one of the very times, I think, biblically, a statement was given, and it said that during this time people would call right wrong and wrong right, right? Or good evil and evil good. Right. And I believe that one of the major causes of that is that they have an inability to discern things spiritually. So many people they utilize worldly education, worldly ways and philosophies, which are based in philosophies of the world. They utilize that in their Christian behaviors, right? It's just like if I can bring up one subject, critical thinking, right? A lot of people say, well, you got to have critical thinking. Okay, who came up with critical thinking? That is a philosophy that was given by worldly men. And so you have that practice of, I don't have to have critical thinking. I need instruction from the Most High. See, it's a difference. Yeah. You can resolve something yourself through critical thinking and make your own decisions, or you can be instructed by the Lord by way of the truth, right? So even in that small thing, unless somebody makes it known, you don't know that you're doing that. And so there are a lot of things that people are operating by. They're not aware of what they're doing. They're not aware that they're participants. And a lot of that has to do with what's really in power now, what's really behind the motivations of some of the folks in government, what's behind some of this technological revolution and where it's all going, because we can all admit this technology has not enhanced the human life. It hasn't. It has not enhanced the human life. It's caused us to be comfortable, and it has entertained us, but it has not enhanced the human life. And so, because we're becoming weaker, our immune systems are compromised, we're not as smart as we used to be. Some of the younger generations, they're smart by way of computers, but they have no knowledge in their minds. They know video games, they know how to use a calculator, but they cannot perform basic rudimentary things. They couldn't even live on their own out in the wild anymore because they don't know anything about plants and trees, gardens, any of those things. So we're being highly deceived generation from generation, and it's gotten so far that people can't see what is destroying them. So, and now a lot of these kids, a lot of people accept evil things as being normal, and they reject good things as being evil. And so, it's precisely what the Bible said.
Mike, is there technologies being used to alter our minds' thought process? I mean, are they?
Yes. I'd say yes, but you can't tell. It's become so normal, Pastor Paul, you can't tell. It's very difficult to know unless a person takes their fuse box and they cut off the fuse box and they put up with being away from technology and they go through withdrawal symptoms. And I'm telling you something truthful. Unless they do that, they'll never know what hold technology has on them, right? They just won't know that.
So, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, but knowledge is learning something that's beneficial. Learning instruction by the Holy Spirit, learning the Word of God, learning how to function and how to build a road, how to level a field, how to plant a seed, how to, put something together. Learning something that's beneficial. But if our minds are being entertained, manipulated, seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. I mean, philosophies of devils. Is that going on right now?
Absolutely. How many people they resort to feel normal, to get away from the stress of the world? They turn to what? Entertainment. That's why these guys are getting paid on TV. That's why these reality shows, movies, this, that, and the other. And all of us know what that is. All of us know that we can sit and we can watch a movie and it gives us an escape from the reality of the world. If not momentarily, it does so. It puts us in a brand new paradigm. It causes us to ignore the truth of this world and escape and create our own fantasy, each and every one of us, according to what we want. Because if you take away entertainment, everybody's forced to see the truth. And when they see the truth, Pastor Paul, that's when people will choke one another. That's exactly. So entertainment is an escape. They found this out in Rome. They knew this in Greece. And that's why they had the gladiators and everything else. So people would have an outlet for their emotions. But as Christians, we're called to walk spiritually, to overcome all emotions, all these things of the flesh, and to walk in sobriety, not to pacify those things of the flesh or to make room or provision for the flesh. But in this day and age, with the technology, with certain forces at hand, even there are people cohabitating with demonic spirits, and they don't even know it. They don't know that they have a duality within them, and they're doing this, and it's normal to everybody else. So, and mankind is rivaling the activities of demons anyway, and it can hardly be seen. It's become an acceptable way of life. To some, not to folks like me. I'm still kind of old-fashioned. What was an abomination years ago is still an abomination to me. So, but for the most part, people can't.
I'm with you on that. What was an abomination then is still an abomination now, and will always be an abomination according to the word of the Lord. Mike, this is some incredible information. You're watching what's going on with the debris field. And it looks like the media is giving us little bits of soft disclosure now, as they generally do. As you say, there's a media internally in intelligence, and then there's what the public get to know. And I heard from one gentleman this week who told me that he has two sources in the Pentagon that said that by September, October-ish, that's going to be quite evident. There's some effects on the planet. I don't know if you can confirm that or deny that, or what is your thoughts on that?
That's Paul. I believe that everybody is watching. Everybody's quite cautioned by some of the events that have already taken place. They're very cautioned. And I believe that many are watching. I mean, many from NASA, even the folks at NASA, JPL, European Space Agency, some of the private organizations, they're all watching. They're watching and pouring money into observation. There was a billionaire not more than a week ago who gave, I believe it was it $313 million into a project to watch certain parts of space, and he just added more money into it this week. So people are quite serious as to what they're doing. Of course, they're bypassing NASA and JPL because what they're doing is collaborating with the DoD directly and working with private organizations pouring their money into observation because they can't afford to miss this date. And CERN absolutely is running those experiments at breakneck pace because they need some exact dates. I know I said that before, but they need to know what's happening with our atmosphere and the absorption of some of these cosmic rays. And so they have a few chambers they have developed there to replicate just that because they need exact figures. They can't afford to estimate, guesstimate, do any of those things. They need to know because other people are putting pressure on them for an exact date. So,
Mike, we'd like for you to come back next Thursday night if you can. That would be May 28th. It'd also be the first night of Pentecost, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Pentecost. The fire from heaven may be actually going to fall.
Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we?
You'll be with us. Can you be with us next Thursday then?
I sure can. I sure can.
Well, thank you, Mike, and appreciate as always the information.
All right, Pascal. God bless you guys.
God bless.
Thank you.